This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
China says its influence on global affairs more comprehensive than ever. We continue with our coverage of the United Nations General Assembly and hear more from African leaders. And the quest to uncover the most popular street delicacies across Africa takes us to Uganda and Tunisia. Hello and a warm welcome to Africa Live. I am Peninah Karibe. Let's have a look at other stories lined up this hour. Nigeria allowed to seek to overturn a ruling that gave away its assets worth $9 billion. And in sport, South Africa rugby team gains international support in Japan. We begin with a look at a new Chinese white paper entitled China and the World in the New Era. The paper details China's impact on the world and says the country's influence is more comprehensive than ever.
白皮书通过大量数据和事实
Through a large amount of data and facts, the white paper introduces tremendous achievements, great significance, and global contributions of China's development over the past 70 years. The white paper points out that China spent decades achieving the development process that developed countries have gone through for hundreds of years. China's total economic output has leapt to the second place worldwide. Nearly 1.4 billion people no longer have to deal with material shortages, reached a well-off level overall, and are enjoying unprecedented dignity and rights.
As the world watches China's progress, many wonder what the future of this rapidly growing country means. What does China want? What kind of country is China trying to become? And how will this rapidly developing nation deal with the rest of the world? The white paper gives us a look at the guiding principles.
The words of Chinese President Xi Jinping sum up the ideology of the white paper.
China's plan is to build a community with a shared future for mankind to achieve win-win cooperation and common prosperity.
The concept of creating a community with a shared future for mankind was first proposed in 2012. President Xi Jinping raised the idea again in 2017. The white paper says China values mutual respect and equal consultation on political issues and seeks dialogue instead of confrontation on security matters. China promotes open and win-win cooperation in economic development. It respects the diversity of world civilizations and promotes an environmentally friendly development pattern and joint efforts to fight climate change. China promises to build a new model of international relations based on mutual respect, fairness, justice, and win-win cooperation. China will actively develop international partnerships, seeking common ground while resolving differences with major powers such as the United States, Russia, and the European Union. In the face of rising unilateralism, China believes that the world must solve problems through reforms in the process of progress. Future plans for this include continuing to open its doors to the world, accelerating regional economic integration, and promoting the internationalization of its currency, the RMB. The white paper also highlights cultural exchange. China says it adheres to an equal, diversified, inclusive, and open view on civilization. It is foolish to think that one's own ethnic group and civilization are superior to others. In practice, it is disastrous. To artificially create a clash of civilizations can only aggravate the gap between civilizations and plunge the world into division and confrontation. From actions to ideology, the white paper says China is looking to play a peaceful role in the international arena, echoing the words of President Xi.
不对任何国家构成威胁。
No matter how far China develops, you will never seek hegemony or expansion.
China is looking to actively participate in reform and construction of the systems of global governance. Abiding by the principle of consultation, contribution, and shared benefits, China works to support reform of international organizations such as UN, the IMF, and the World Bank. and continuing to promote innovation in concept of governance, contributing China's wisdom to the world.
While China's positive influence is greatly being felt here in Africa, in Ethiopia, the Chinese support has played a key role in the country's infrastructural development. The capital, Addis Ababa, boasts of a light rail system. There are impressive dams for hydroelectric power generation and a high-speed rail connection to Djibouti. CGTN's Grim Chala brings us more details.
Ethiopia follows an agriculture-led industrial policy. The plan is designed for the industry to ultimately take the lead, and the progress so far is remarkable. Close to 10 fully operating and dozen more private and government-owned industrial parks are found across the country. Even by continental standards, this is quite significant.
We usually indicate in Ethiopia as a very good model for industrial development in Africa. Ethiopia in a few years, less than 10 years, achieved a big leap for developing industrialization. And by the economic indicator, Ethiopia is one of the fast really development of industrial production across the continent. Ethiopia across number of years, less than 10 years, created approximately around 18 or 19 special economic zones and industrial park. Not randomly, they created based on the comparative advantage what Ethiopia had.
In 2018 alone, Ethiopia's industrial parks have generated $103 million from exports. That figure is 40% up from the previous year. The specialized industrial parks, which follow the Chinese similar development model, are engaged in textile and garment, pharmaceuticals, as well as agro-processing sectors.
The industrial parks development in Ethiopia is bringing huge economic transformation to the country. But its success for Ethiopia can also be a great example and motivator for Africans to pursue industrial development for their respective countries.
Due to its state-of-the-art industrial parks and overall economic growth of the country, which stood around 8.5% last year and around 10% for many years before that, Ethiopia is assumed to be the China of Africa. The African Union also believes Ethiopia is well on track to achieve its industrial ambitions.
Ethiopia is moving very well on the industrial development. And industry is a more complicated rather than any other sector. So many issues needed to really support the industry to come out at the end for developing industry. I believe Ethiopia is doing in parallel developing this issue.
The Chinese influence in the Ethiopian economy is multifaceted. From direct investment to knowledge and skills transfer, Chinese companies and businesses are leaving a lasting impression into Ethiopia's journey to a much higher economic height. Group Dara CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
And still on China-Ethiopia relations, CGTN's Coletta Wanjohi spoke to Admasu Nebebe. He is the State Minister of Ethiopia's Ministry of Finance in charge of external economic cooperation.
Generally, we have a very excellent relationship between the two countries. Actually, when we had the last FOCAC and also BRI meeting, it has been announced that we have elevated our cooperation to comprehensive strategic partnership, which means we have agreed to cooperate on all aspects of development and other relations. So we feel the Chinese and the Ethiopian cooperation is really directly contributing to economic growth that the country is now registering over the last several years.
What more can the two countries do, China and Ethiopia, to support the economic growth of Ethiopia more?
I think it's not only financial cooperation we are talking, it's about technology, knowledge, transfers. So we have been using expertise of China in consistent and also cooperation with local staff. So knowledge and the skill transfer is a key part of our cooperation. In terms of sectors, as you said, we have been in all sectors, I would say, in agricultural transformation. They have been participating in both the research, but in the power sector also. They have been involved in all renewable energies, the hydropower development, the transmission substations, and the other aspects of power. They have been participating. They have been both technically, also financially. So I can name it the railway, the one which now only connects us to Djibouti, already now functional 2 years, are becoming one of our gateway. It has improved our logistics, transportation, and so on. As a landlocked country, we feel now we are not landlocked, already connected through the railway. So the huge telecom, they have been really providing support in modernizing our telecom system through different loan and also grant mechanism.
What are some of the sectors that Ethiopia is still opening up for cooperation that China can tap into?
Actually, now we are also focusing on investment in the trade. Of course, in terms of trade relations, they are number one, where our trading volume is also with the Chinese, but also huge investors. FDI is also number one here. But we are working even more to expand that investment. So our future cooperation also focuses mainly on investment in many industrial parks. Already they are involved in that process. In the agricultural transformation, also in the industrial development areas. So we are still looking in that areas. Still in the tourism, which is also what we are really expecting, in the ICT, in the agricultural transformation, industry, mining. These are the key sectors that we have identified that we will be working with China and the other development partners in the futures to come. But in the human development, we have sent about 220 Ethiopians to China for masters and the PhD studies. So human development is a key and a critical part of our cooperation. So these are some of the areas that we will be further working with China.
South Africa is also one of China's leading trading partners, and ahead of the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China, the Chinese Consulate General in Cape Town organized a reception to mark the milestone. Leading South African political figures, together with Chinese nationals, were treated to a wide range of entertainment as part of these celebrations. There was also a special photography exhibition depicting China's development, changes and achievements for the last 70 years. In his speech, Consul General Lin Jing of the Chinese Consulate General in Cape Town said China is willing to work closely with South Africa to promote bilateral relations and comprehensive strategic partnership between the two countries. Zimbabweans also held celebrations to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. Both Chinese and Zimbabwean dignitaries attended the celebrations. Leaders in Zimbabwe hailed China's contribution to the world, calling for more cooperation. Relations between the two countries stretch back decades and have seen both Zimbabwe and China cooperate in a wide range of sectors. They include trade, investment, financing, health, and infrastructure.
Results the assistance and cooperation from friendly countries, including Zimbabwe, and all the friends present here, it will be much harder. The Chinese and African people have supported and cooperated with each other in our respective endeavors to fight against colonialism and imperialism, and win independence and liberation, and in the pursuit of development and national renewal.
I want to say on behalf of the government of Zimbabwe and also on the party ZANU-PF, we are so excited that China is now 70 years old, and we can see that in the 70 years they have traveled a journey of trials and tribulations. But we are proud that in all these experiences that you have gone through, you have emerged even stronger. And some of us that are still very young countries in terms of colonialism, having attained independence, we have a lot to learn from China.
It is my pleasure to be celebrating the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China, a country which has done a lot of work for itself and for the world, and also for Zimbabwe in particular. And I want to say to the people of China, congratulations, you have a great country and you've got a great friends like Zimbabwe. We will always be friends for life.
An event was also held in Kenya to mark the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. Chinese ambassador to Kenya, Wu Peng, said his country is willing to share its development outcomes with the rest of the world. CGTN's Robert Mugabe has that report.
Members of the diplomatic corps, government officials and invited guests gathered at the Chinese embassy in Nairobi on Thursday evening to mark the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China.
Chairman Mao solemnly declared to the world the founding of the People's Republic of China. Since then, China truly became an independent nation, just like the Madarika Day for our Kenyan brothers and sisters. This day marked the historic moment we became our own master, and China embarked on a new journey.
Since embarking on landmark reforms in the late 70s, China has emerged from isolation to become one of the most powerful nations in the world. President Xi Jinping has increased the country's footprint globally through trade and culture, and nowhere is that more apparent than in Africa, where China is the continent's largest trading partner.
In 2018, China's GDP reached $13.6 trillion, a 174-fold increase since 1949. Under the leadership of the Communist Party of China, the Chinese people, united as one, are striving to move forward from poverty and weakness to prosperity and strength. We have created miracles one after another in human history.
An exhibition charting China's journey to the present was on display at the embassy. October 1st will mark the start of a week-long national holiday in China, one of the country's 2 Golden Week vacations, when tourist sites across the country will be packed. Robert Mugabe, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
You're watching Africa Live. Time for us to take a quick break. Here's what's still ahead. We continue with our coverage of the United Nations General Assembly and hear more from African leaders. And the quest to uncover the most popular street delicacies across Africa takes us to Uganda and Tunisia.
I've learned how to code in a simple way.
Together with other young people, we're able to make this difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Now, on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met with foreign ministers of African UN Security Council member countries. Wang says China and African nations should show solidarity, adding that the biggest challenge in the current international situation is unilateralism. CGTN's Wang Guan has more from New York.
Whenever Africa is in need, China will be there to help. That was the message from Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi in a meeting with foreign ministers of African members of the UN Security Council. Wang Yi said Africa is China's brother and most reliable partner and called for greater China-Africa solidarity inside the Security Council to ensure multilateralism prevails. Beijing believes social and economic development is the long-term solution to many of Africa's problems. Wang Yi said China will continue to support Africa's growth through the Belt and Road Initiative and the implementation of UN Sustainable Development Goals. Also on Thursday, he met with his counterparts of Brazil, Russia, India, and South Africa, also known as the BRICS countries. The Chinese state councillor said the BRICS have acted as a stabilizing force in an increasingly divided world. Future cooperation among this bloc of emerging market nations will focus on the digital economy and investments. China's increasing role abroad on the global stage comes after decades of social and economic transformation at home. An exhibition inside the United Nations on Thursday showcased just that. The exhibition marked the 70th anniversary of the founding of People's Republic of China, and they drew a big crowd, among them UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and Wang Yi.
We will remain a friend and seek peaceful and friendly cooperation with all countries in the world, and we will contribute our share to world peace, to international development, and remain a promoter of international order. We will work with all other countries to create a better future for the entire humanity.
And this also marks the 40th anniversary of the United Nations' presence in China. Over the past 4 decades, China has been a key participant in our work as a pillar of international cooperation and multilateralism.
On Friday, Wang Yi will address the UN General Assembly, where he's expected to lay out China's proposals on issues ranging from Iran and Afghanistan to climate change and global growth. Wang Guan, CGTN, New York.
Still at the United Nations General Assembly, the President of the Democratic Republic of Congo has asked for more support in fighting militant groups. President Felix Tshisekedi also said his country is ready to help eradicate poverty and hunger, but he needs a better equipped and stronger peacekeeping force. CGTN's Lillington reports.
In his first address to the United Nations General Assembly, the Congolese president portrayed the Democratic Republic of the Congo as a country in need of partnership, but one that is also ready to play its part. He said the DRC could be part of the solution to ending hunger and poverty, pointing to 80 million hectares of farmland and abundant water resources, which he said was enough to support 2 billion people. Now, the president also said that the DRC was ready to share its natural resources, citing its vast reserves of cobalt and lithium. He said they would not be used for, quote, monopolistic profit. Instead, he said that they would be opened up to the world in exchange for help in his country's development. Now, the president also acknowledged that more needed to be done in the area of peace and security in his country, breaking with his predecessor, Joseph Kabila, who maintained that the DRC did not need a peacekeeping force in the country. President Tshisekedi asked for more peacekeepers. He also requested the UN find ways to improve the peacekeeping mission in his country, known as MONUSCO, to protect the DRC against the Congolese Revolutionary Army, also known as M23.
La République démocratique du Congo a encore besoin de la MONUSCO.
The Democratic Republic of the Congo still needs MONUSCO, but we need a MONUSCO that is nimble, well-equipped, strong, and has a properly adjusted mandate, such as in the case of the Rapid Intervention Brigade, which has already been able to derail the M23 movement.
M23.
The president also raised concerns about an April terrorist attack, the first in the DRC, claimed to have been carried out by the Islamic State group, also known as Daesh. He also said if conflicts and instability were not enough, the country is still battling the effects of the Ebola epidemic. He said the situation remained very serious, but a new health strategy was beginning to bear fruit. He said doctors will be using 5 newly approved medications and the vaccine, aiming to eradicate the disease. Lillington, CGTN at the United Nations in New York.
Meanwhile, South Sudanese Vice President Taban Deng Gai has also made an address at the UN General Assembly. He welcomed the recent face-to-face meeting between President Salva Kiir and opposition leader Dr. Riek Machar. He described the meeting as an important step towards the realization of lasting peace and stability in the country.
The successful face-to-face meeting held in a friendly atmosphere
between President Salva Kiir Mayardit and Dr. Riek Machar in Juba early this month offered an opportunity to deliberate on critical pending issues to pave way for the formation of a new government of national unity by 12 November 2019. Critical to the success of peace agreement in the Republic of South Sudan is engagement by the different stakeholders. The visit of Dr. Riek and his delegation last month in Juba was a tremendous milestone and has brought the much-needed confidence to the leaders of different political parties and the citizens of the Republic of South Sudan.
Moving on to Sierra Leone, a number of people are still unaccounted for after a building under construction collapsed in the country's second largest city of Bou on Wednesday. No death has, however, been reported. So far, at least 12 people have been rescued with injuries, but there are fears the figure will increase. More than 80 people were scheduled for work on the site at the time of the incident, and it remains unclear how many could still be under the rubble. Moving on to South Africa now, and some local communities have been urged not to drink untreated water. In-depth studies conducted by the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research in a town called Stinkwater has found that groundwater is contaminated. CGTN's Julie Sher reports.
Most South Africans have access to clean water, but infrastructure is still poor in some communities.
They have to rely on either waiting for treated water to be delivered by trucks, a few times a week, or they make use of hand-dug wells, groundwater that they typically have dug themselves or by family members before them, or they buy water from private service providers.
One such town is Stinkwater on the outskirts of the country's capital, Pretoria. The Council for Scientific and Industrial Research conducted an in-depth 3-year study on water used from makeshift wells.
Over 150 groundwater samples were tested in these labs. Scientists found traces of nitrate and a high presence of E. coli, which can pose serious health risks when consumed.
People might be infected and get diseases, typically like diarrheal diseases. If there's elevated levels of nitrate, then there's many potential adverse health effects that can be caused by that. One of them is a condition called methemoglobinemia, which is where nitrate gets converted to nitrite, thereby inhibiting their ability to carry oxygen.
In nearby Hammanskraal, the Human Rights Commission has ordered that clean water be provided as matter of urgency. Residents have been fighting almost 10 years for drinkable water.
We buy water from the shop because of this water gets us sick. We are sick. When we drink the water from the tap, we get sick. Sometimes kids drink this water from the tap and go to hospital.
We are very angry about this dirty water we're drinking, washing, and our clothes become discolored. We have written a memorandum to the Department of Water so that they can purify this water for us.
South Africa has made significant progress in providing access to the precious commodity, but almost 4% of the population still rely on rivers, dams and streams for their daily needs. Julie Shara, CGTN, Pretoria, South Africa.
Meanwhile, a team of researchers from the University of Pretoria's Institute for Sustainable Malaria Control is trying to find out why malaria cases are on the rise even during winter months when infections usually dip in tandem with freezing temperatures. Here's more on that.
The research being conducted in parts of Limpopo province in South Africa, which has a high risk of malaria, is designed to study the Anopheles mosquito that transmits malaria.
We've just collected our mosquitoes out of our MTT trap, and this is great. This is a really good catch for out of season. So I'm really excited. We'll go take these back now and we'll go identify what species they are and see if they are potentially malaria vectors.
Winter is low season for malaria transmission in South Africa as the disease is mostly contracted during the warmer and wetter months. September to May are listed as malaria high season months, while June to the end of August are known to be low season months.
We like to do annual collections, but more than one annual collection. We try and do different seasons. Now, this is the winter season, so technically you would expect less malaria, but we've actually noticed that there is an increase in this area, as I said, of malaria cases. And because this is the area of the highest incidence in the country, it just made sense to come here and try and figure out what the problem is.
Globally, malaria infected about 219 million people in 2017 and killed around 435,000 of them, the vast majority babies and children in the poorest parts of Africa. Kenya recently added a malaria vaccine developed by British drug maker GlaxoSmithKline to its routine immunization schedule for babies and toddlers, becoming the third African country to do so.
It is important to them to know about this malaria thing so that they can know how to protect themselves from this kind of disease.
The researchers also hold awareness sessions with local communities and visit schools to educate the students about the disease. Existing malaria-fighting tools such as bed nets, medicines and insecticides are still being used to fight malaria, alongside new vaccines. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
To Morocco now, where significant strides against HIV and AIDS have been realized, but campaigners worry this success put Morocco at risk of losing funding to combat the virus. And for people living with the disease, fighting stigma remains another challenge.
In the Moroccan city of Casablanca, a group is meeting to share experiences of living with HIV. It's a rare opportunity to speak openly about the disease. Morocco is a conservative Muslim society where the topic of sex and sexually transmitted infections are taboo.
The therapist is the intermediary that supports people with the virus. Anyone coming here for the first time will first go to the therapeutic mediator, who will provide psychological support and other services, including support to show him the process of monitoring his condition.
These programs were developed shortly after the first HIV case was detected in Morocco in 1986. Thanks to improved screening, access to treatment and monitoring, new HIV infections in Morocco declined by 42% between 2010 and 2016.
What allowed us to decrease infection rates is largely due to our work with the most exposed populations. And we have a lot of apprehension about the sustainability of the financing of this work if the Global Fund were to acquit Morocco.
But some groups remain vulnerable. The sense of shame after contracting HIV is so entrenched that most patients never speak of their illness except with doctors.
Nous sommes à plus de 30 ans de l'épidémie.
Unfortunately, there's still much stigma and discrimination against HIV infection. First of all, at the level of the general population, it is clear that there's still much to do to improve. Say, the acceptance of a person living with HIV in Morocco.
Moroccan society is a society without mercy, not necessarily with your family and friends, but the whole society.
With funding declining globally and controversy surrounding the management of UNAIDS, there are fears of impending financial cuts. But how much money Morocco will receive to continue with this fight will be determined at a 3-yearly conference for the Global Fund next month. Brian Toussaint, CGTN.
This is Africa Live. Coming up in business news. Nigeria allowed to seek to overturn a ruling that gave away its assets worth $9 billion. And the International Monetary Fund challenges Zimbabwe to intensify efforts on economic and political reform.
It is Chinatown. Against the odds, the People's Republic of China was founded 70 years ago. Since then, it has aspired for change, both at home and abroad. What is driving this endeavor, and how has it managed to evolve with the times? We will look back, and in a new era. The nation is forging new missions and visions. We will look ahead. Tune in to our exclusive coverage of the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
A UK judge has allowed Nigeria to seek to overturn a ruling that would have allowed a private firm to seize more than $9 billion in assets from the country. The judge also granted Nigeria's request for a stay on any asset seizures while its legal challenge is pending. However, the country must pay $200 million to the court within 60 days to ensure the stay. Process and Industrial Development had sued Nigeria over a failed gas project in the country. Then, on August 16th, a decision by a London court converted the $9 billion arbitration award to a legal judgment. Nigeria's appeal of this decision, called a set-aside, would need to prove there was an error in the ruling. Now, one of Africa's biggest tech startup, Andela, recently laid off over 400 software engineers in Nigeria, Kenya and Rwanda. The news came as a big surprise to many and raises concerns over the health of the tech firm, which is one of the shining examples of tech development in Africa. CGTN's Deji Badmas has been looking at what's behind the massive job cuts.
Andela prides itself as one of the best places to work in Africa, and it's not difficult to understand why. Employees get a fat paycheck, working tools, rooms to nap in, lunch on the house, and an overall positive culture. There's even a crash for staff who are nursing mothers. These things are not common in workplaces on the continent, and it's part of the reasons why the tech firm gets about 75,000 applications every year. But in a surprise move last week, the tech firm decided to let go of 420 of its software engineers across Nigeria, Kenya and Uganda, majority of them junior engineers deemed to be surplus to requirement.
So we had about 500 people on the bench, most of them junior engineers, which we knew we would not be able to place with companies to work for in the next 1 year, 18 months, some even 2 years. And so that is not the experience that any of them, these brilliant engineers, signed up for, and it's not sustainable for us as a company. And so that was why we had to take this decision.
Andela usually recruits junior level engineers, trains them and gets them work placements with companies across the world where the engineers work remotely. But in recent times, most companies now source their junior engineers domestically and only engage senior engineers to work for them remotely. It's that changing trend that basically forced Andela to let his junior engineers go.
This was really the last resort, having to do this, and that's why it came sort of as a shock. It's not something that we had been planning since, because we kept trying different strategies to see how we could place more of the junior engineers. But the truth is, again, you're a business and you need to adapt your strategy to your customer needs so that you're actually successful as a business.
Andela says it is now partnering with other local tech firms to absorb the junior engineers who have been relieved of their jobs. The country director believes the training they have gained while working for Andela would stand them in good stead.
We've had over 90 companies reach out to us requesting for our engineers. What we have right now is a partnership with CC Hub, iHub Innovation Village to sort of manage the process. So all the requests that come to us inbound, we pass them on so that CC Hub can do the matching and basically get the companies to be matched to developers, interview them, and so the companies are directly hiring. CC Hub is just providing the support and also free workspace for all our engineers.
Whatever happens, the junior engineers have an invaluable asset that should even see them set out on their own without necessarily having to take up full-time employment. Fact is, software developers are very much in demand across Africa, and getting laid off by Andela might just be an opportunity for some of these guys to hit it big time. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
The International Monetary Fund says that Zimbabwe needs to intensify efforts on economic and political reform to win confidence of the West. President Emerson Mnangagwa's government faces a growing chorus of criticism of its commitment to reform as it seeks a lifting of sanctions on the country. Opponents of the president say the government has failed to implement political reforms, including amending security and media laws. The Southern African nation is feeling the effects of a drought that has hit crops and electricity generation. Soaring prices and shortages of foreign currency and fuel have also sparked anger among the people. The government has, however, taken steps to relaunch the Zimbabwean dollar after a decade of dollarization, among other reforms. Financial policymakers say these could lay the foundations for future growth. Senegal has kicked off the emergence of the Rural World Through Development exhibition in the capital, Dakar. It is a 2-month event supported by the Shanghai Academy of Fine Arts in partnership with Senegal's Museum of Black Civilizations to encourage the sharing of skills. Senegal's Minister of Culture, Abdoulaye Diop, notes that Senegal needs new skills to build its cities as migration to urban areas increases. Senegal and China plan a project of academic cooperation focused on the research and digitization of the country's heritage.
The People's Republic of China has been able to develop its countryside by preserving its culture. We can do it too, and that is the main message of this exhibition. It's an example that can inspire us, even if we have to do it by ourselves.
We wish this exhibition can help China and Senegal think about the common rural problems in the process of developing, especially in the field of rural revitalization and rural heritage protection.
The third edition of the Middle East and North Africa's Air Show has concluded in Marrakesh, Morocco. The event held at Marrakesh Menara Airport provided a platform for business aviation suppliers, providers and buyers to network and establish new relationships in North Africa. It hosted more than 2,000 people from across the world and showcased 70 exhibitors. Due to its strategic location between Europe, the Middle East and the rest of Africa, Morocco is seeing an increasing amount of business jet movements. The industry also benefits from government support, which is actively targeting and attracting the aerospace and business aviation industry through its Vision 2020.
We are the first time in Morocco for this air show. It's a trial. We want to get to know the place, the show, see how is the response on the local market to the show. What are the visitors? If it turns out to be an interesting place to be, we will certainly consider to come back again. There is also a quite big market in China, a growing market for the business aviation. We have several customers from China for aircraft maintenance, but also for aircraft interior completion.
Still in that air show in Morocco, Royal Air Maroc recently announced that its direct Casablanca-Beijing air route will open in January 16th next year. During the air show, Morocco's Minister of Tourism, Air Transport, Handicraft and Social Economy, Mohamed Sajid, commented on the importance of the direct flight.
It is a big pleasure for us to have this flight direct from Casablanca to Peking. It will land in the new airport of Peking. We have worked with the authority of China, with the Minister of Transport, the Minister of Civil Aviation, to make this opening possible. And I am sure that this opening will help to increase the number of tourists from China to Morocco, and also help the Moroccan businessmen who work with China to have this facility and this direct flights.
Coming up after the break, the quest to uncover the most popular street delicacies across Africa takes us to Uganda and Tunisia.
Suka sace ni gaskiya, ni kan ban ji daɗin abin da suka mun ba, sun cuce ni. Duniya wa lahira, kuma yanzu duk inda nake sunana ba zai taɓa ɓata ba, a mazaunin Boko Haram ya ɗauke ni.
Ni abun da na bi sun ba aikin su duniya ba ya yi mun ba, kana ji ba, kawai kai da babu wani abu hannunka, in mutum zai ce baka wani abu zai baka.
I'm never going to be able to exhaust fighting for those people before I leave this earth. And that is a cause that I want to dedicate the rest of my life to.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's now turn to our continuing focus on favorite snacks across Africa. The fast food craze is popular in Uganda, but there's one snack that ranks highest in demand: the Rolex, a combination of eggs, flatbread, and vegetables. It's almost everybody's daily meal, and as Leon Sinyanga reports, it is also changing the lives of vendors.
The bread, eggs, onions and tomatoes, the perfect recipes for what Ugandans call the Rolex. Bashir Bulaya has been making this street food for 6 years now.
A friend of mine taught me what to do. When I learned how to make the Rolex, I was even able to go to Sudan and start a Rolex business there.
A Rolex here costs between 50 cents to $1. The earnings, Bashir says, has provided him a good income.
I have been able to build a house in my village. I even own cows. I also want to live better here in Kampala.
The Rolex was introduced here about 15 years ago. Thousands of stalls have opened up around town and beyond, making this fast food easily available in Uganda. The Rolex is the quick fix for breakfast, lunch, or even a late night meal. It is the pick up and go kind of snack and almost everyone's favorite. And there is every reason why.
Everything in the Rolex is nice. I like the fried carrots, the raw tomatoes, the onions. It's so delicious.
I actually call it African pizza. It's very tasty, combined with the eggs, the proteins. Yeah, it's really very, very nice.
There's even a festival to celebrate the delicacy, where thousands attend. But every day on the streets, the Rolex remains the perfect treat to keep one going. Leon Sanyanga, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
In North Africa, another snack is also very popular in 24 regions across Tunisia. The centenary recipe, which is made of vegetables, olive oil and tuna. It is the favorite snack for millions of Tunisians. CGTN's Adnet Shawashi tells us more.
Semi is a 30-year-old cook and snack owner. He learned this Hanatunsi recipe from his mother at home before opening his business in the suburbs of the capital city Tunis. Semi serves over 1,000 plates per day from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m.
I make my own salad with all seasonal vegetables, tuna, olives and fries. The quality is guaranteed. It's prepared in less than 2 minutes, but it gives energy for the whole day.
The ingredients have not changed over the past 100 years. Some people eat this Hanatunsi every day before the lunch break.
This snack is tasty and healthy. I cannot concentrate at work if I don't eat this purely Tunisian plate. I like it when it's spicy. That's how we eat food in Tunisia.
Many customers, especially civil servants, come from far away to eat at Sami's.
I like this snack because I don't have to worry about quality. This is my daily routine. I'm never fed up of this Tunisian food.
Over the past 8 years, the 50% rise in the price of vegetables, oil, tuna and other ingredients did not prevent this snack owner from serving his favorite street food or even deter Tunisians from eating Hanatunsi. Sami's brothers plan to open new branches of their local snack in other neighborhoods of the capital city Tunis. People here say that selling food, especially Hanatunsi and other traditional food, is the only lucrative business in the country. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
And coming up in sports, South Africa rugby team gains international support in Japan.
Africa, where champions are made, records are broken, legends are born. We're there for every goal, for every knockout, for every step of the way.